We'll call the Committee of the Whole meeting to order for June 9th, 2020. It is 7:02 p.m. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have some members dialing in for public participation. Just a reminder for public participation for those dialing in. The rules state that you'll have 5 minutes for your time to speak unless additional time is authorized by the mayor or consent of the council. Members of the council, upon recognition by the mayor, may request speakers during public comment portion of the agenda. Any time spent during questioning by members shall not be deducted from the 5-minute time limit for each comment permitted to each speaker. The city clerk or recording secretary shall be designated as the official timekeeper and shall be responsible for notifying the mayor when the allotted time has expired. And with that, I would ask those that are on the call to please mute your phone. And when it's your turn, then I'll call on you. The first up is Merritt Burns.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to take this moment lightly. My name is Merritt Burns, as was stated, and I reside at 423 North Ottawa Street in Ward 3. I wanted to start by thanking all the present members tonight for your service to the city. I come and I request to speak mainly as a public safety concern has developed. My safety concern focuses around current chief, Bob Donofsky. As a result of that concern, I'm asking the City Council to place Chief Donofsky on administrative paid leave and investigate further the actions of our fire chief. I ask that the Council take the time to ensure that he is capable of fulfilling his duties for all the citizens of this community. At the end of the investigation, if the Council feels he is unfit, and that you ask him to submit a letter of resignation from his title. My request stems from social media posts made by Mr. Donofsky on Facebook, and while I understand he has since apologized for the action, it has not set well with me. They've not set well with me for two reasons. One, our community has now had a negative image cast around the state and around the globe as other media outlets have picked up the story and published articles. Additionally, this is not set well with me because of the apology issued by Mr. Donofsky, and his comments in the newspaper are contradictory. I quote the State Journal Register from June 4th. Chief Bob Donofsky said the decision to share the post was made in haste and without much thought, and that he didn't have any ill intent when he did it. We know this not to be true, though, because he posted more than one offensive status. On May 26, 2020, at 3:20 p.m., Chief Donofsky shared a post that stated, and I'm quoting, "The next civil war won't be North versus South. It will be Americans versus Democrats," end quote. I'm an American. I'm a tax-paying citizen of this community, and based off that status, I was just cast as being not American and that I would be an enemy to America in a war. Follow that up on June 2nd, 2020, at 8:51 a.m., Chief Donofsky shared the meme that he feels caused all the uproar and that he apologized for sharing. In that post, he targets homes that have signs for Democratic candidates and encourages the looting and robbing of those homes. Now, taken as a single entity, I could probably accept his apology also. A pattern, however, has developed, and that's troubling to me. I also find it concerning that simply a conversation and an apology was sufficient initially for the council. Actions such as these deserve a full investigation and a public report so that it instills confidence in the citizens that they're taking these comments serious also. I have real questions as to full confidence of this leadership in the fire department based solely off of the comments by Chief Donofsky. I want to stress that I'm not attacking Chief Donofsky, as I do not know him at all. I don't know him personally. I only know him by these Facebook posts. Additionally, though, I would like to thank him for his 38 years of public service. I know it's not an easy job. However, I do have real questions of his leadership based off those comments and the fact that my taxpayer dollars go to pay him a salary of $78,000 and he's going to ostracize part of this community. Lastly, I would appreciate a written response from the City Council about conducting an investigation to the conduct of Chief Danufsky. And with that, I'll yield my time.
Thank you, Merritt. Okay, thank you for your time, Merritt.
Thank you.
Next up is Lance Conahan. Lance?
Hello, Council. Thank you for your time. I am calling about the animal control. I believe it's line item 9 on the agenda. We have a situation. I did send an email to some of the council members. Hopefully you received it. You've had time to review that. If you need additional emails or videos, please don't hesitate to reach out. They can be provided. I am calling because Ward 1 is being plagued by by an animal that is barking excessively. We've had animal control involved. We've got the police department that's been involved, and unfortunately we seem to be at a halt. And the situation is getting to the point where people do not feel safe to walk down our road for fear of being attacked. The dog barks at hours of the night when people have to get up and go to work in the morning. So I've been in contact with Jane with Animal Control, and I really can commend her for her time because this is a very thankless job. What I would say is that she needs your support and empowerment to make these executive decisions that need to be made about animal control related issues. Unfortunately, now it's in the hands of the Lincoln Police Department, and they too are being plagued with a situation that we just cannot get a grasp on. And unfortunately, we've got innocent taxpayers that are being suffering because of this individual, dog. So I would advocate that you strongly review the ordinance and give Mrs. Whiteman the ability to take matters into her own hands and address this. Furthermore, I would also urge you to look at the fines that are in place right now. They are not up to current times. $10, this doesn't cut the mustard. They need to be significantly higher. And we really need a policy in place with the Lincoln Police Department and with Animal Control that if you come out one time, this is what happens. It's a warning. The second time and any more times after that, that the issue is addressed immediately, i.e. fines. I don't know where the disconnect came into play there, but we've got a disconnect. So that's really what I wanted to speak about. I know that this is you folks are in a very thankless job, and I appreciate your service. I appreciate the Lincoln Police Department working on this. I appreciate our city officials working on this, but we've got to get this situation under control, and it has to be addressed soon. And that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thanks, Lance. Mr. Bateman?
So I've received several videos of the situation down here, and I've received several phone calls from residents that do live in the area. I want to thank Lance for calling in, but he's not the only one complaining about this animal and the resident there. I know Lance did send a video here earlier this evening of the dog chasing someone down the road, but I just want the council to know they can reach out if they would like, or I could forward them on. There's multiple videos of the dog chasing children, family members, cars, and quite frankly, it's more than one dog. It's two dogs at this restaurant, this residence, and neither one of them are fenced or controlled when they're out in the yard, and they chase pedestrians and vehicles constantly. Then the barking issue is the one large dog that barks all hours of the evening. I owned a large dog for quite a time, and there is a certain time that you just don't let your big dog out to bark like that, because it will wake up people for several blocks. So I want to thank Lance for calling in, but I wanted the council to know there's several other residents.
I'm sorry, one Mr. Bateman, thank you for bringing that up. This is another concern of mine and some other constituents in my ward, is that I feel that the city could almost be sued potentially if this animal would charge at a little kid on a bicycle, an elderly couple walking by, or gets a hold of someone's pet. I've been charged by the dog. I have a 3-pound Maltese, and it doesn't hold a candle to a 60 to 80-pound large dog. So I also feel that the city is exposing itself in a certain stance because so many videos have been furnished to the city, if you will. And so I would also, address that issue as well, that the city could be open for potential litigation if the dog would attack somebody, since the city has been apprised of the situation.
Okay, thank you, Lance. We'll get into more detail on that when we get into number 9 and number 10 on the agenda tonight, if you wanted to just tune in and follow. Anything else you'd like to share? Okay, thanks, Lance.
Thank you.
Next up is Kevin Qualters. Kevin?
Yes, hi. Thank you for having me speak at your meeting tonight. I was calling to see about, I know I was in there once before about possibly getting some chickens, which is on your agenda tonight, item 12, in town here. I know currently the ordinance prohibits any, they call them livestock animals in town, and chickens are one of those things that people are using everywhere. They're being utilized in several different cities. I know, Williamsville recently allowed them last summer. That was something that they allowed. They had a resident come up and ask about it, saying that, they'd like to being able to get some chickens. And actually they had some residents that weren't really for it, but they decided that ultimately it would be an idea, and they're actually doing theirs based on permit. I've looked at several other cities, like the city of Chicago. They've got no restrictions on chickens. You can have chickens, you can have roosters or hens or whatever. There's no limit. What I'm asking for is I would like to possibly get up to maybe 6 hens so we can get some eggs. I've done a lot of research on, things that people are doing, and, most cities, most ordinances are allowing people to have up to like 6 hens. Some of them actually do it more based on your lot size of your property, but they're allowing them to have chickens. Some of them are saying, for some of their rules and that are, must be at least 5 feet away from the property line or 10 feet away from another residence. They basically most of them require you to have them where they're not free range, where they're fenced in, where they can't walk all over. There are actually some cities like Jacksonville that actually changed their ordinance and said that they think it would be great to let the chickens walk everywhere, basically saying that, they don't have ordinances like that for dogs and the size of dog houses and that. But I actually think it's one of those things we should, if we can find a way to make this work where, we keep them contained just so we can get some chicken eggs and things like that. But it was something I know I was in there another time asking about, and I know it was tabled last time, and I saw you had it on the agenda, and so I wanted to just come again and ask if there's a way we could possibly look into doing this. I'm not looking to try and sell any eggs or anything like this. This is strictly just for personal use, and most ordinances I've looked at have had restrictions on selling the eggs or even killing the chickens. And, they had things on making sure that, like the food you use to feed the chickens, that they're kept in containers where rodents won't get into them and things like that. And, as far as maintaining it, obviously, it should be well maintained, kind of like, you would do with if you have a dog or something like that. But it's just something I'd really like to be able to do, and I'm asking the council to consider making an adjustment to the ordinance.
A quick question. So, six mature hens would produce about how many eggs per week?
Well, a lot of times you can get an egg a day. So you can get 6 eggs a day from 6 hens.
I'll wait till after.
And I know my neighbor, he's also David Gerlach. He was also going to call in, and he just had. I know it's something that he's kind of interested in as well, and I think he might have some information or some things he might like to say about it.
Yep, he's up next. President Gerlach, do you want to speak?
Certainly. Kevin lives next to me, and certainly my wife was intrigued by the possibility, and here's my rationale. You know, for the last few months, we've been locked down. Our food supply has come into question. My wife and I are on a wait list for a freezer, and they're expected not to be able to get us a freezer here locally until August. And this lockdown with the pandemic has certainly caused me to question our food independence. And so we've grown a little garden here at the Lincoln College President's House. And in speaking to Kevin, I think as citizens, we need to be much more sensitive in being self-sufficient, whether that's for our food supply, for our medicine, for the manufacturing that we do. And, to me, this is a common sense measure with reasonable restrictions, with reasonable oversight, maybe a permit, maybe I'm not advocating for a fee, but whatever it would take to allow some measure of X hens per property size, not free range. I think for the average community member, this could be something that would be good for children, would be good for teaching agriculture, would be good for our food supply, and something that a less restrictive society might benefit us here in the community of Lincoln. I also want to echo a previous caller. I appreciate tremendously your service to this city, and sad to see that the mayor's resignation occurred. This is a difficult time to serve, and I just want to say thank you to each of you for the weekly and biweekly commitment that you have in governing this wonderful city of Lincoln.
Thank you, President Gerlach. Alderman Keller.
Thank you, Mayor. So some of my comments dovetail really into the discussion on item number 12. So I don't know if you wanted me to share some of what I was going to share now, but I might as well. So a little bit of history on this. The ordinance which we're referring to is 6-2-32, keeping of certain animals prohibited, which was in 2014 when the council adopted it. I'm not going to read it all, but it said, except as otherwise expressly provided in this code, no person shall keep, harbor, or allow to be kept within city limits any live chicken, turkey, goose, duck, poultry, byproduct, pigeons, goats, sheep. Then it goes and lists about 30 other animals, some of which I have no idea what they even are. And this was in 2014. I think it went through the City Planning Commission, and they gave their approval. And then as Mr. Qualters had said, he came last fall to present this, and then, correct me if I'm wrong, Wes, I think you were on the phone, that you had talked with the City Planning Commission, and they had no interest in bringing it back up, but kind of handed it back to the city. And so, but with the permission, of course, that we can do whatever we want when it comes to ordinances. And I have been notified independently by about 5 or 6 people individually, I think without even talking to each other, about this issue within the past couple months for the reasons that Mr. Gerlach even expressed, that I think COVID sort of made us more aware of maybe we can raise our own in a respectful manner. So I had reached out to Wes, and all of you received this. Wes Woodhull had put together, looking at other cities, a pretty good draft of some regulations as well as a draft permit. And I think the regulations that he had put together address a lot of the concerns that I would have on this. So I guess that, again, if we want to talk about this now or wait till we get to that particular item, but I would definitely propose that we really look at this a little bit farther as a council.
Yeah, let's, if you don't mind, can we wait till we get to that number? Because we have some swearing-ins to do.
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. President Gerlach and Mr. Qualters, thanks for calling in. If you'd like to stay on the call, you're more than welcome to.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, one quick item before we move on. Item number 5, we're gonna go ahead and strike. We'll put that on a future meeting. And the next up is item number 4, the swearing in of new police officers Chase Fox and Daniel Carr. Chief?
So first up is Chase Fox. Chase Fox comes from us from Logan County Sheriff's Department. He's done a great job there. He was a U.S. Marine, he, good kid, and hopefully a good candidate for us. Both guys have actually finished their FTO period, and they're actually out on their own by now. So they're learning very fast. So good job, guys.
Okay, sir. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I,
Chase Fox,
having been appointed
having been appointed
to the office of patrolman
to the office of patrolman
in the city of Lincoln,
in the city of Lincoln,
in the county of Logan,
the county of Logan,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the state of Illinois.
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
I'll faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of patrolman
of the office of patrolman
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations. Mr. Fox?
Okay, next up is Daniel Carr. Daniel Carr comes from us from Macon County Sheriff's Office. Daniel has a bachelor's degree. He done a great job over there. He's actually what we call a drug recognition expert certified, so he's actually a very good asset to the city. So carry on.
Please raise your right hand, say aye, and then your name.
I, Daniel Carr,
Now repeat after me. Having been appointed to the office
having been appointed to the office
of patrolman
of patrolman
in the city of Lincoln,
in the city of Lincoln,
in the county of Logan,
in the county of Logan,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the state of Illinois,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of patrolman
of the office of patrolman
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Okay, congratulations to both of you. Next up on the agenda is the mayoral appointment of Bob Morrow and Kelly Frost Allison to the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Put it on the voting agenda.
So the regular? Yeah. Okay. Next item is Rebuild Illinois currently received $159,311.78. And the discussion on the capital project to use the funds on. Is that you, City Administrator? Walt?
I'd like to use them, but it's Walt.
All yours, Walt.
Okay. The Illinois Department of Transportation has been authorized to implement a $1.5 billion grant program using proceeds from general obligation bonds authorized in the Rebuild Illinois Capital Program to provide local public agencies with funds for capital projects. Luckily, we've received our first check for $159,311.78. They're supposed to come in biannual payments of that amount for the next 3 years, for a total of $955,870.68. Examples of bondable projects may include, but not limited to, project development, design, land acquisition, demolition when done in preparation for additional bondable construction, construction engineering, reconstruction of roadway, design, overlay extension, or new construction of roads, bridges, ramps, overpasses, and underpasses, bridge replacement and or major bridge rehabilitation, permanent ADA sidewalk ramp improvements, and seeding, sodding are eligible expenditures as part of a larger bondable project. So what we've talked about in the past, or at the beginning of the year when we started to talk about our resurfacing projects, one of the targets I brought forward was Heitman Drive. It would be my recommendation that we go ahead and use part of the first payment that we received with the grant to do the engineering for that project so we can proceed with that project next year. I am assuming, and this is just a rough guess, that the engineering for that project will be between $30,000 and $40,000. Leaving us a balance of this year's this payment of $119,311.78. If we receive our additional check within the year, that would give us a balance in that bond fund of $278,623.56. With the engineering being paid already on that part of it, that could be enough to finish that Heitman Drive project. If not, it would be close, and we could supplement general funds, resurfacing funds to help finish the project if it wasn't sufficient. Some of the other projects that I think we probably should consider doing would be Tremont Street, from North Logan Street to Union Street, 4th Street, at least from Maple to Pine Street. And in accordance with the sewer project going on right now, we could also use these funds for North Union Street, from Broadway to Tremont, and then Union Street from Woodlawn to Feldman Drive. As we get toward, if we do continue to receive these bond payments, we could also consider using this towards the District Road project toward the end of its maturity.
Anybody have any comments, questions? Alderman Keller?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Well, when did you say that second payment probably would be received? At the earliest?
It should be before the end of the state fiscal year, I would think.
Okay. So
it's hard to tell. You just don't know how it's going to come through.
So obviously then that, if you did, for instance, Heitman, that would be a target for that would be done next year.
The construction project would be, yes.
But the engineering this year?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
We received our...
Go ahead, Walt.
We received our first payment on May 5th. It was actually the day after we discussed this the last time. So if you figure within 6 months of that, but you're talking about the state of Illinois, so who knows for sure when we'd get that second installment.
So I'm proposing that we put on the voting agenda next week, have Walt write up something where we're go out for proposal or however that's handled for the engineering part of Heitman Drive. And then I would also like to ask that even though we have other projects that desperately need done, that we don't spend any more money of that state money until we have enough money to cover the Heitman Drive project. And then each one of those next big projects he talks about, instead of trying to piecemeal them, just let's start saving money for that specific project and then move to the next specific project instead of using, I don't want to use general funds, and I'd like to not dip into our annual street repair, but use this money to target some of the larger ones that would nearly deplete the street repair money we have every year.
One note is that this money has to be expended by 2025.
So is that what the council would like to do? Let's do that. Yeah. Okay, Walt. So can you put together a proposal for the Heitman Drive engineering for us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next item up is the Petersburg plumbing invoice for 515 North College Street in the amount of $17,775.01. Andrew?
Yes, what we have going here is damage that was done by a subcontractor from Metrocom. Several years ago, I believe Metrocom would have that date. I do not currently have it. The repair that was done by Petersburg was completed in May 9th of last year. We've been sitting on this invoice for a year. I have been working since I got here to try to get remuneration from Metrocom for their the subcontractor's damage. That has not happened, and in the interest of preserving our relationship with Petersburg Plumbing, I would suggest that we pay this bill now and continue to work on getting payback.
Alderman Parrott?
Who hired Metrocon as a subcontractor? Did the city hire them, or did?
They hired a subcontractor.
Metrocom.
Metrocom hired a subcontractor.
Oh, okay. Who did they hire?
Andrew, who did Metrocom hire?
I do not even know the name of the particular subcontractor. I know this subcontractor with some of my previous conversations with Craig Bennett from Metrocom. They terminated this particular subcontractor for other issues of the same nature within Lincoln.
Steve?
Just a quick question, then a follow-up. So your gut feeling on the city if we did pay this, ever getting the $17,775.01? If we pay this, what's the chances that we're going to get reimbursed?
I am not optimistic. I had a little discussion today with the city attorney, and we think we need to move in a different direction as opposed to getting paid back from the subcontractor's insurance and move directly into requesting payment from Metrocom, since it was their subcontractor that damaged the line.
Yeah, and I would agree that we need to maintain this relationship with Petersburg, because when these last-minute emergencies, they happen, Petersburg is the ones that we typically call in to help us, because they have all of the proper equipment to deal with our infrastructure. And so we have that good working relationship already established. We wouldn't want to jeopardize that. Jeff?
Yeah, I'll echo in on that. Also, Andrew, you can correct me also on this, but they did a fantastic job on our 4th Street project there by Carroll. That's correct. When they did.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they do excellent work, and I think we need to pay them.
So you guys want to put it on the regular agenda? Yeah. Right. Okay, we'll go ahead and put that on the regular agenda. Thanks, Andrew. Next item's up on the agenda. I'm going to bundle both of these because they're going to roll into one another. Number 9 is the Animal Control Act and / contract. Number 10 is the fines in place regarding animal control. Alderman Bateman.
So I asked to put the animal control contract on the agenda for one specific reason, but it bundles a lot of reasons, is in the city code for animals, there's several references of the animal control administrator or their designee. Well, as I was animal control chairman for nearly a decade at the county board, one of the problems we always had, particularly with the city of Lincoln, was our animal control warden and the staff there did not have the ability to write tickets or enforce the animal control code for the city of Lincoln. So with the issue that's come up on 21st Street and issues that I've received phone calls in other areas of the town, I believe it would benefit the city if we go into a different agreement with the Logan County Animal Control, allowing our animal control warden to issue fines, tickets, or if need be, remove animals from people's homes if they're designated for any one of the reasons that's already written in our city code, to grant that authority to that person. In other words, we would change the contract to say that once the city enters into a contract with Logan County for the animal control contract that we sign every single year, part of that contract needs to say that the city is authorizing the Logan County Animal Control Warden and their administrative staff the ability to enforce the animal control code in the city of Lincoln. I think this would do two things. One, it would free up a lot of Lincoln police personnel from having to respond to certain calls, and it would also give the Logan County Animal Control the ability to determine when an animal should be removed from a residence due to any one of the number of things we dealt with were hoarding issues, running at large of animals that I'm not going to use the term vicious, but dogs that just are mean-spirited dogs that constantly chase after people, health reasons, all kinds of other reasons. Now, obviously, the police needs to be called in certain instances, but I believe by allowing to give her this ability, that him or her, this ability, it would free up a lot of time for the Lincoln Police Department, and it would help code enforcement for the animal control code that the city has.
Jeff.
Yes, I'm in agreement with all that Mr. Bateman said. My question would be to Mr. Hoblet. What would be the legality of a non-city employee issuing violations of our, is there legalities to that, or how would you work that? Or
Well, I'm not exactly excited by the idea of an entity that's not the officer citing, because you're going to have logistical issues. I mean, they have a pretty well greased system they have there, where they're not overlapping numbers and the citations go to where they need to go. It's not saying that position can't be put in place in regards to the county board. In regards to the Logan County Animal Control, there might be ramifications for passing something of that nature. It could be that, and I don't know, I think that we had a conversation as to whether or not I'm a little fuzzy in regards to that aspect, but there might be additional staff that may be required or not. I mean, but it would be dependent on, I think, the contract negotiation, and that if there is any additional staff that need to be hired, probably that cost would probably be put on the city. Having said that, though, I will note that 6-2-28 of our code gives the animal control administrator, now granted, this was made back in 1985. Okay, so obviously the agreement that we entered into with the county happened thereafter. Okay, and just a quote from our city code, it states that the animal control administrator shall investigate and keep a record of every person bitten by a dog or a cat within the city and shall impale and dispose of according to the provisions. What gets more relevant, it says that the animal control administrator and his or her delegates, which would be their employees, have the power to issue citations for violations of this chapter. So at one point in time in the past, we've already passed that and indicated that they could do that. Okay. I'm guessing maybe, I don't know how often they actually did that, but perhaps when this changed over to the county, we enter an agreement with the county, that necessarily did not take place. Now, I would think that the intent would be at the time when we contracted that any powers we had conveyed to the animal control administrator for the city would have essentially now been incumbent upon the county, would now be in the counties as well, but perhaps that language needs to change within our own ordinance, within our own city code, that say either the animal control administrator or whoever the city contracts with to provide animal control services, things of that nature. Okay, that might happen to clean up our language and also maybe address any needs within the contract as well.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I just want to add that in my conversation with the individuals involved on 21st Street, and then with law enforcement and the animal control warden of Logan County, if she had, and the city clerk sent everybody a copy of the current animal control contract, and we've read it thoroughly, and as chairman, it's the same contract we've had for quite some time. She feels that she doesn't have the authority, and she also feels that if she did have the authority, that very nuisance dog on 21st Street would already have been removed from that residence, because it is chased pedestrians, sometimes small kids, on video over a half a dozen times at least. This is the kind of dog that, and Mr. Welch, we've had plenty of conversations, it's not if it's going to bite somebody, it's when. And that's just one of their dogs. So evidently the Logan County Animal Control Warden doesn't feel that she has that authority. And we had a large conference call with not only the city attorney, the state's attorney, assistant police chief, because Paul was on vacation, Mr. Welch, myself, and the animal control warden. And out of that phone call, we all agreed that these kind of changes that I'm bringing up need to happen for the reasons that I gave, that it gives her authority to enforce our animal control code, and it frees up time for police officers that you know, they go to the residents, and then they end up having to call animal control anyway, where if animal control was involved from the very get-go, they're the ones that have the knowledge and the training on what dogs are mean, not mean, was it really running at large, you know, all the other issues that tend to happen in these instances.
So, a couple things I'll chime in. I've been working with Kevin on this, the chief, the city attorney. We've all had plenty of conversations about this topic. And I think it's become very clear that the code, 99.9% of the time, addresses the needs that we have. But when these issues come up that are of a more aggressive nature happen, we got ourselves in a situation with our code where our hands are pretty well tied. I think the chief and perhaps Alderman Bateman would agree that we need to have some very clear guidelines to follow as to who does what, because we have gone through this back and forth conversation, even with dispatch, that at a certain time, who gets called? And then if the wrong person gets called, do they go out and then who do they call? It's confusing to us, so I can't imagine what it's like being a constituent, having an issue. They should just be able to pick up a phone, call dispatch, and just know that the right person will show up. And so I think that we can craft the language. Alderman Bateman can work with the city attorney on crafting a proposal to us and then bring it back to the council, and we can review it at that time. Sam, did you have something?
I do have something to add. I had a couple questions. First off, I'm all for doing whatever to get the loose dogs off the street. The video that we sent was pretty disturbing. I've heard of a lot of dog attacks. Anyway. However, something else came up shortly before the COVID. We talked about coyotes all throughout town. Is there any way to put language into the contract that coyotes and other feral animals can be addressed?
Unfortunately, that's a DNR issue. They would have to be contacted. Because we had that question for animal control as well.
Yeah.
And at one point in the past, Ms. Whiteman out at Animal Control did say that the animal control warden that was there before her, she did write citations. She just don't know why it stopped. So it has happened in the past. But I mean, the language itself has to be done in a very careful manner, because as we've had conversations on the phone, we don't want to get into a situation where our animal control wardens or even their staff goes out to a situation where something more is happening that could put them in harm's way as well. So we know we need to fix this, but I personally and I think Kevin will know where I'm coming from, I want it done in such a way that makes sure that we're thinking about everything and we don't create another problem. Go ahead, Kevin.
So in the animal control contract that we're currently under, in section 3, item D, it says enforcement of animal control laws. The Logan County shall certify an administrator, one or more of its employees, as being trained and competent to assume the duties of the animal control warden. Administrator shall appoint such employees as animal control wardens to enforce all applicable statutes, regulations, city ordinances, and county ordinances related to animal control, and to capture and impound dogs for running at large within the city. Animal control agrees to respond within 24 hours a day. To me, that reads that they already have the authority, but what has happened over the years somewhere along the line is it was talked about or agreed upon that the city has never voted, and maybe this attorney has a different view, to grant that authority to the animal control warden. Our contract says that they shall enforce it, but somewhere along the line it was dropped that, no, this is a police issue, not an animal control issue. So that's where I'm wanting clarification, is for section 3, item D, somewhere the city needs to take an official stance and say the Logan County Animal Control Warden is our designated animal control person.
That's why we pay her. Alderman Parrott.
Does the contract state 24 hours of service?
Yes, it does. It says animal control agrees to respond 24 hours a day to barking dogs, dogs running at large, and bite cases. Animal control will maintain reasonable hours for reclaims, applications, and non-emergency needs. So it already states in the contract that we will respond 24 hours a day for those 3 instances. Now, in that conference call, both attorneys agreed, and at least that's how I remember it, that at night especially, dispatch shouldn't send animal control to a barking dog, because is that dog barking at a nuisance like it does on 21st Street? Or is that dog barking because there's somebody breaking into the neighbor's house? And even Mr. Volakovich agreed that, yes, patrol should go in those instances, just for safety's sake. So, you know, I think it's just a couple simple sentences that need to be changed in this contract. You know, and if the city's willing to do any monetary, you know, increase of the contract for the extra work that Jane and her staff would do, I'm sure the county would appreciate it, but I think it would alleviate a lot of the patrol officers having to respond to this, and then just let animal control take care of animal problems.
Yeah, and just informational, the contract that we have with Logan County, we signed it in May. We approved it, the council did. I forget the exact date. They have not signed it on their end because this issue came up. And so now, as it stands, we're operating on a month-to-month basis with the county. They have agreed to continue in that manner until we address it. They actually had a animal control committee meeting last night, and they are awaiting the approach that we take in this manner to decide how they move forward. So, yeah, Alderman Bateman.
So, if we're tying the two in there, the other problem, and this is where we have Paul chime in, or Paul can chime in anytime. I believe in looking at the fines that they were set a very long time ago. Just before I left the county board, we increased all of ours. I agree with Mr. Conahan. $10 is nothing. A guy's going to $10 because my dog was barking. Here you go. I have had numerous conversations with the residents down there and explained to them that, you know, dogs do bark. The animal control people are very well trained on what causes a dog to bark. Is a dog tied to the tree in the backyard and he barking because he wants in the house? Or is the dog tied to the tree and he's neglected and he's barking because the owner is neglecting him? Or is he barking because the neighbor's doing something? You know, dogs bark. They're very good at determining what is a nuisance and what is normal animal, which doesn't relieve the responsibility for the owner, but it's those conversations that are had.
Mr. Hoblet.
Just some clarification. What we have in regards to our code 6-2-3B, that's the dog at large. That's the one that has the 10 and then the $20. It's $10 for the first violation, and then $20 for a second violation occurring within a 12-month period, $40 for a third violation occurring with a 12-month period, and $50 for a fourth violation within a 12-month period, and then $100 thereafter for each successive violation within the 12-month period. Now, the case that went to court recently with this individual, that was a dog at large issue. Okay, so that is what went to court. It was his first violation. So having said that, the fines were set some time ago. These were also set back in 1985. Okay, which is a good amount of time ago. The barking, that's significantly more. That's $150 for the first violation, and then $100 thereafter, with each successive violation. Now, having said that, for most people, I believe within this municipality, the issues, these fines will probably be fine. I mean, when I say $10, it's $10 plus a $100 court fee that's added on top. So it's $110 for a first violation, which is a good chunk of change for a dog that's barking, you know. And then if it's a successive dog barking, then the fines go up. And the way we try to enforce people in regards to compliance is the fines. Okay, so and we just happen to have an unfortunate situation where the courts were closed down for 3 months, and so we couldn't get these multiple violations of the dogs that were barking incessantly in front of a judge. So, which is part of the reason why we're here now. But I do agree that these fines were set quite some time ago. They probably are ripe for review. But I'd also counsel keep in mind too that, it's not an insignificant amount of money for a dog barking. So just FYI.
Alderman Bateman.
So if a barking dog violation is $110, why isn't a running at large violation $110 for the first offense? Which is more egregious? To me, the running at large, which could actually harm a human or cause an accident, is more egregious than the dog barking in his backyard or tied to a fence. So at a minimum, at a minimum on the running at large in 6-2-3, I would like the council to consider adding a 0 at the end of each one of those. First offense is $100. Second offense is $200.
I'd go more.
Well, I'd like to go more too. I'd go higher, but at least at a minimum, they should match the barking dog fines, because running at large is far more egregious than barking.
Mr. Hoblet.
I believe I could provide some guidance in regards to why one fine is one level and the other is another. And primarily, one was, I believe, reissued or re-looked upon in 2013, whereas the other one is from 1985. Furthermore, the dog at large falls within the animal control aspect of our city code, and the dog barking falls underneath the miscellaneous offenses from which the police usually issue citations. Now, the dog barking got wrapped in to just very other, which is essentially 6-4-26, the loud, disturbing, unnecessary noises, which runs a whole gamut of various noise violations, and pets is one of them within there. So that's why the fine is in the actually the police enforcement section as opposed to the animal control section, and so I believe that's why the fines are higher, and the fines were readjusted, I believe, in 2013, whereas the other one, again, is from 1985.
So going back to topic 9, I think where the change needs to be made, giving animal control the authority, is in 6-2-28, the powers of the animal control administrator, authorized agents. Somewhere in there, it should state that once the city enters into the contract with Logan County, that makes the animal control warden of Logan County the animal control administrator for the city of Lincoln.
So can you work with the city attorney to draft actual language so that we on the council can actually see what you're proposing?
Yes,
I'd like to actually see the language as presented and it will be voted on so that we can understand exactly how that's going to lay out.
I don't have a problem with that. Like I said, the only two things I would like to change is the one I just explained of who is the 6-2-28, and then the 6-2-3, the fines for dogs running at large.
Anybody else have anything? So are we going to, Mr. Hoblet?
And just so you guys are aware, 6-2-28 gives the animal control administrator or whoever its designee, which was probably contemplated at the time of contracting, the powers in regards to this particular chapter, which was the animal control. The loud noises still technically, with the pets, still technically falls underneath the police provisions. So the animal control, Logan County, would not have the authority to issue citations for barking dogs. Just an FYI if that's not changed either. But that's just for your awareness.
So in the contract, though, it has specific language about barking dogs. How do you address that?
I get that, but the contract also states ordinances and ordinance violations as well. So apparently they want some greater degree of specificity. So
So then we're gonna have to update the contract.
most likely.
Okay, so there's three changes, Kevin, that you're proposing be brought forward. A new revision of the contract, the animal control contract, and then a change to 6-2-28, and then 6-2-3, correct?
Correct.
Alderman Parrott.
Can the contract be adjusted before we vote on the ordinance updates?
It's up to you guys. Sure, it can. As it stands right now, it's not a valid contract. Logan County hasn't signed it.
I know, but I mean, if you write a contract and for whatever reason, an ordinance that's brought with changes and it doesn't pass, then
I see what you're saying. We would put the ordinance changes on the agenda first, and we would put the animal control contract changes second. So if the ordinances don't pass, then obviously we're gonna table the contract till we pass an ordinance.
And we'll work with Steve Janis on the county board. He's the chair of the Animal Control Committee. We'll work with him on this to make sure that we're doing this in line with their expectations too. Because I don't want another situation where we put something in place and then it goes over to them and then they start volleying it back and forth. So Kevin, are you gonna bring that back to us at the next COW? Or
Do you think we can have something for the voting session?
Well, if you want, I mean, we could put something together, but if you want the council to discuss, they might take umbrage with the fines that we propose or that you propose. They might want to know the language. I mean, I understand that they probably want to have some answer, from the council or some direction from the council. This contract needs to be addressed because the farther we go, I mean, I think the council was the contract expired at the end of May, so the farther we go from there, the greater degree of question and uncertainty arises. But I would just think we need to be reviewed by another COW, but we could, we would, in order to put on the agenda for the vote, we have to know with some degree what we're voting on.
So we'll put it on the COW for the 23rd with a possible, COW for the 23rd with a possible vote on the 29th. We don't have a meeting the 29th. We'll put it on the COW for the 23rd.
Okay.
And we will email everybody, once we hammer out what we think is the final, we'll email it to everybody so they have a chance to read it ahead of time.
sounds good. Okay. Thank you.
Just to back up, we could, to expedite this, we could have a special voting meeting the same night as our COW, if you think it's that pressing.
Well, what it would do by doing that is allow us to get ahead of the next animal control. I think they meet monthly, and it would allow us to get ahead of them. And I want to be very clear before I say this. I'm not in favor of fast tracking things because when you fast track things, you make mistakes. But also, we have the animal control contract hinging upon this, but we have constituents in this community who are facing problems on a daily basis that are anxiously awaiting for us to provide them some guidelines and relief. And the longer we drag it out, the more they just have to deal with issues. Alderman Parrott.
Chief, how many calls do you guys normally get in a year on excessive dog barking? Because I can see this contract, I don't know how much it could go up, and part of the recouping of it would be fines. But if we're not going to get enough fines to recoup it, and we just have this one glaring issue that's facing us, is it worth it?
Well, okay, so first of all, the barking dogs is the higher amount fine anyway, so that one's kind of, we're not gonna talk about that. What we're talking about is the dog at large, which is an animal control problem. And what did I give you the other day in regards to stats on those?
When we talked on the phone,
Yeah,
you went back to 2000, wasn't it 8?
maybe 9 a month, maybe?
Yeah, it
Dog
wasn't
issues.
a lot.
We don't
Yeah, 10 a
characterize it
month or
by
dog at large, or it's just in our CAD and our dispatch, they just log it as a animal problem is what we're dispatched to. So I can't tell you specifically without actually going back over all of them and tell you exactly, yeah, this was a dog at large one, but general, I think it was maybe 9 or 10 a month, so.
Alderman Bateman.
And Mr. Parrott, some of those, Lincoln PD's not dispatched. If it comes in to dispatch, and this was on that conference call, dispatch is trained to, you know, are we dispatching animal control during their business hours, or are we dispatching Lincoln PD? So the numbers could be higher. Well, I know they're higher because of being on animal control, that there's times that PD's not involved for a dog running at large. And again, that's when the animal control people, you know, did somebody's toddler accidentally let the dog out, or is it one of these egregious things where I have one in my, well, it's not in my ward, but I just, on Madison Street, where the person just purposely opens the door because they don't like somebody walking by. They open the door and let their dog go after them. So those are some issues also. So, you know.
So do you want, for this particular item then, do you want to put it on the agenda? And then we can remove it if we have to?
We could do that, yeah. I'm hearing that it seems to be an expedited thing. I don't know what you're saying about running through. Yeah, so I mean, we're talking,
so you
be in
need,
July before we vote on it then, but.
Peggy, you need, what, 48 hours to publish? So if we don't have anything by Thursday, then, it'll go to the cow. Okay? Well, there's the contract language, and then 2 paragraphs within that ordinance, yeah. Yep. Okay. Anything else on this? Okay. Moving on to the next one. Number 11 is the parking lot grant. Mr. Conzo?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Is this thing working? Thank you. For those of you who weren't here at the time, this goes back to 2011. I'm not going to try to go through it point by point since that time, but I'll be happy to answer any questions on this. At the time, there was a proposal put forward by Mayor Snyder to do some parking lot improvements on the what's now what we commonly call the library parking lot. In reality, part of it's library parking lot and part of it's a city parking lot. And so what the plan was at that time was to try to bring that up to where it's more usable. As you all know, it's not in the best of shape. As a result of that, we did have, he did put forward a proposal to do that would have cost us about $140,000, I think, or $150,000. There were state grant money available, which would have covered about $140,000 of it. However, things didn't get done at that time, and it kept getting pushed forward. In about 2014, when Sue McLaughlin was here as city administrator, and then she started this project again, or picked up this project again. It was not resolved by the time she left. Clay Johnson took over as city administrator later. At that time, it was the desire of the city government to solicit additional bids. So the cost on this then went up to closer to $400,000, $500,000. We received about $140,000, I think it was, in grants from DCEO for that purpose, which would have still left us a lot of money that we would have had to spend out of city funds that would not have been reimbursed. Those who were on the council at the time, which is now, I guess, by now we're up to about 2017, voted, and I know Alderman Horn, you were here, Alderman Heineke, you were here, voted against spending that kind of money for what would have been a considerably larger improvement in the parking lot. So now, turn the page forward to 2020,
we're in a situation where we were given kind of about a 1 week period to rewrite the grant. Well, we couldn't have even had a council meeting in that amount of time to rewrite the grant application. I think City Administrator Cavalman has corresponded with many of you on this subject. The problem with this would have been, we still would have been stuck with paying a large, even if we were able to renew the grant, which is doubtful because they put a pretty much an unreasonable deadline on that. Even if we were able to rewrite that, we would have had to come up with another $300,000 or so to do that, and we just don't have it at this point. So what we're faced with is the possibility of having to repay some of that money, because here's what happened: we received about $40-some thousand in grant proceeds. We spent $7,500 of it, or reported at the time in 2014, reported $7,500 of that as engineering expense, but we spent the full $45,000 that we received on engineering. Well, DCEO isn't going to permit that. Since the project did not go forward from there, we're not going to be able to use that or to justify using that. What I've done since then is I've corresponded with DCEO, their representative, and sent them the invoices for the engineering. Engineering costs about $35,000 that we spent on engineering. They're probably only going to allow that $7,500 that they allowed initially. So we've got that. We also have $1,153 that I think there's a chance they will allow, was paid to Ramsey Geotechnical Engineering, and it was for digging up core samples and other things that you have to do in preparation for construction. So I'm optimistic that that'll be approved. But the bottom line is we'll probably have to repay, at some point, that $35,000, unless they look at that and say that, that it's justified to have spent that on engineering. And that was two separate invoices, I think. One was for $25,000 and the other was for $9,000 to Farnsworth Group. So that's where we are. There's really nothing to put on the agenda, but I wanted to update you on that.
Alderman Keller.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So, Treasurer Conzo, so even if they do not force us to have to pay back the $35,000, is there the expectation that we will proceed? I mean, is that a quid pro quo that you don't have to pay it back, but you have to proceed with a project of some sort?
That I would expect that they haven't said that in those words. We're still waiting. We've submitted what we had, and we're still waiting to hear on that. But I would guess that they would expect us to do that. Now, I wouldn't think we'd have to go for that full $400,000 project, but we would probably have to submit something downsized or scaled down version of that in order to get any hope of not having to pay that back.
I mean, that would definitely require re-engineering, because the Welcome Park that is currently under lease to tourism, that was part of that initial design. So.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that was started and kept going, kind of like Fifth Street Road project and some of these other things, and they just kind of fade out, and we're confronted with them years later.
And there are people that would love to see that parking lot redone in that alley, so I would too.
I had one other thing, if I may.
Mr. Conzo,
really
go
two. One of them is amendment to the appropriation ordinance. We do this every year, and I think I've explained this before, but we are allowed by law to move funds around within a sub-fund. So, say for example, in the fire line, they may have spent less on computers than we appropriated, but spent more for. In fact, they did more for. Get the right line. The pagers, because of the upgrades and the telephones. So, for example, there we'll have about a $625 change in that fund. I'm going to send all these out. You don't have to write these down. Other things were workers' compensation. We didn't spend as much on that, but we spent more on property insurance and liability insurance. And there's about a dozen or 13 of these, and I'll enumerate those in a document. What I plan to do is send these out to the police chief, fire chief, and the various superintendents, the city clerk, the mayor, city administrator to have him look over their portions of it and see if there's anything that I overlooked, which is certainly possible, or anything that I may contain an error. And then, if it please the council, I'd like to include it in the packet and have it put on the agenda for the next voting meeting, which is June 15th.
Sounds good. Yep, we'll put that on the regular agenda then.
And then the final thing is we need to do an appropriation ordinance for the current fiscal year. That has to be passed and submitted, filed with the county clerk by the end of July. So I need some direction from you as to how you want to proceed with that. If you want to do that the way we did the budget, we had, I think, a very good committee put together for that. We can do it that way. And if that's please the council to do it that way, we'll proceed that way.
Yep. Council agrees.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzo. Okay, next up is item number 11, discussion regarding ordinance prohibiting the raising of chickens in the city limits. Alderman Keller. 12, I'm sorry, 12. Alderman Keller.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Again, I think I said a lot of what I was going to say earlier when we had the gentleman on the phone, but just to continue that conversation a little bit, I think why, when this was brought up last fall, that it just simply dropped was because I think there's always a lot of fear if people have chickens, how many are they going to have, are they going to make noise, and are they going to run around, are going to be susceptible to coyotes and things of this nature. So again, what I would ask the council to do is go back and review some of the draft regulations that Mr. Woodhull had put together, which addresses the number of chickens, addresses how you are kept, the spacing, the coops themselves, that they have to be maintained, that it's free of waste, that the chickens have to be secured, particularly after sundown, all those regulations that are there, no roosters and things of this nature. So what I would propose is that, again, the council look at that, but we also, if we do this, then we have to we have to revise the ordinance, which 6-2-32. The only change would be removing the word chicken, because at this particular point, I'm not suggesting, nor is anyone ever approached me about allowing any of the other animals which are currently prohibited to be allowed. So it just would be chickens. So I'll open up for discussion. But again, what I would propose is that I'll work with Attorney Hoblet and we have this ordinance reviewed, and that we come back for the next cow with further discussion on this.
Alderman Parrott.
If there happens to be any chicken issues, would county animal control be the ones issuing fines?
I don't even have an answer for you on that one. I don't know.
A little tongue in cheek there.
Alderman Bateman.
So I'm going to be a no vote, and I'm going to explain why. We're still dealing with coyote phone calls. I had the city clerk pass on to all of you several articles that I found, and I could keep researching forever. The number one culprit, or the number one predator of chickens, is coyotes. So if we have a coyote issue in town, we're now going to start baiting the coyotes to come to town. If you read those articles, a coyote will eat a chicken and leave no remnants of it. You'll come out and you had 6 when you went to bed and you woke up with only 5. In some of those things, they suggest that to try to coyote-proof your coop, the fencing needs to be buried no less than 24 inches into the ground, because the coyote will dig under the fence. I think this was even depicted in some Warner Brother cartoons of coyotes digging into chicken coops. Also, there's the health issues that go along with those, and I can say again, as my tenure on animal control and talking with the animal control warden, because I saw this come up on the agenda, one of the things she said was, better be prepared, because she gets far more phone calls on, do we allow pygmy goats or the little potbelly pigs in town than she does chickens. So, and she's removed several animals from houses because of this ordinance. So I don't know if that answers Steve's question or not, but she gets far more phone calls for, can I have pygmy goats or potbelly pigs, than she does, can I have chickens. So I'm going to be a no vote based on the coyote issue and the health reasons I know of chickens, and just a plethora of other things. But again, I'm just one vote. Steve does bring up a good question of, who's going to, is this a zoning issue, or would this be an animal control issue? We need to know that if we're going to write that into the contract. So again, those are my reasons for a no vote. That information was forwarded on to you.
Alderman Keller.
Thank you. And I understand your concerns. Certainly, we wouldn't be, and we're not the only city that has contemplated having chickens. Many of them, as Mr. Qualter said, many other communities do. Apparently, they don't have coyotes because they don't have the problem. So apparently, we just are the only city that has coyotes. It can be done. The coops can be built to protect it. I don't know if Mr. Woodhull wants to address the ordinance violations themselves. I do need to, and I cannot find it here. I did have a satisfaction survey one time that I'd come across. I'll look for that again, and I'll forward it out. That this was examined by a group who surveyed cities who had these ordinances allowing chickens, and the number of violations were actually very, very few. So go ahead, Wes.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. As far as any violations would go, basically the only ones that I would be able to enforce, or zoning would be able to enforce, would be the actual nuisance. So that would be your smell, I guess, the unkept nature of the coops, or the smell of neighbors, that sort of concept. I believe the animal portion of it, I guess that goes back to the police. Now, I typically am the one who gets the calls for any other animal in town, whether it be coons, possums, all that stuff. So basically, I do what I can to deal with those. The permit I put together would provide for me to have to go and actually inspect it once a year. It would be a permittable, a yearly permit, so they would have to be inspected once a year for basically all the things in the regulations. Again, I'm not by any means a expert on chickens or the raising of them. So I just kind of put something together in anticipation of this conversation coming up. So it's all very fluid. Obviously, whatever needs changed. Again, it's just kind of, I guess we call it guesswork on my part. But other than that, like I said, all I would be able to enforce really is the enumeration of nuisances. So, and there's multiple that could be found there. A lot of them would have to do with feces, odor. That's what my guess would be the biggest problem.
Anything else on this?
Well, so what's the pleasure of the council? I suppose, though, first of all, if the coyote does get the chickens, we can charge them with foul play.
Mr. Hoblet.
It seems to me that Alderman Keller seems to be the moving party in regards to this chicken-based issue, but I can work with him to essentially work with various city code changes that need to be promulgated. We could bring this forth before the council, and with the idea to talk about it, and then if you so desire, to vote on it one day or not.
Alderman Hoynicke.
Yes, I agree. I think to the constituents, I think we need to bring it forward and vote on it. And with applicable changes that would need to take place. So yeah, I would like to see something brought forward fairly soon.
Yeah, I would too. I think since I've been up here, this is at least the third time that this has come up, so it's something that people are asking us for. And I've said this before up in these chambers, that a lot of times we come up with a lot of reasons why we can't do things instead of taking the steps to do things in a responsible manner, but provide the community some options. And in this case, I think once you put a permitting and a dollar amount in place and an inspection process, that at least gives us an opportunity to know where those sites are, because my understanding is that there's already sites like this in town. People have these animals already. So at least this, gets it on the up and up. Yes, go ahead, Wes.
Sorry. I would agree with that. I would say on a bi-weekly or so, we're after somebody for various animals, basically that are not dogs and cats. So I have had people remove their pigs from their backyard right in the middle of town, and they had no concept that that was not appropriate. We've had various other animals asked if they could have them, and of course the answer was no. Since the last conversation we had, I think I've had one, maybe two residents contact me about chickens, and I basically said not at this time to talk to Mr. Keller, because I knew that was still out there. And like I said, I can change any of this stuff. It was all just kind of, like I said, guesswork. Personally, chickens are chickens. I don't see a problem with them in general. That's my personal opinion. My professional opinion would be, at the end of the day, that's going to fall on this office to deal with. And just keep in mind that no matter what regulations you put out there, a certain amount of people are just simply not going to follow them. Someone's going to say, here's my backyard, go chickens, and unfortunately that's just the way it is. I think that's with anything. By no means singling anybody out, but that's just the nature of, I guess, society. So, but again, that would be just something we'd have to deal with, which we kind of already do. So, of course, it's up to the council.
Alderman Keller, how would you like to proceed?
So as Attorney Hoblet has suggested, I'll work with him, and we'll proceed with this and bring something forward to the next COW.
Sounds good. Okay, thanks, Wes. Moving on to item number 13, discussion on reopening the Amtrak wait station. This is a item that I requested to be put on the agenda. Alderman Parrott and I sit on the tourism board, and they're now starting to talk about reopening tourism and getting the public in there, but they would like to wait until that wait station is open, because it has proper facilities for people waiting for the train and things of that nature. And, we still do have the safety aspect.
Has left the conference.
We do still have the safety aspect with COVID-19 we have to be concerned about. So we'd like to have a discussion on the council about reopening the wait station so that tourism can then proceed to reopen themselves. Wes, did you want to share what you shared today about this?
Yeah, sure. Again, I don't see really any issue why it couldn't be reopened. Unfortunately, I was unable to get the numbers of ridership currently through my contact at Amtrak. As of 2 months ago to the day, they were averaging between 20 and 50 riders from Chicago to St. Louis daily, which is, as you can imagine, extreme hit. At that time, almost every station was basically closed, and we were towards the end of the closings. I would say mid-range of the closings. As of now, I think we're only one of two on the Lincoln service line that is still closed. So I really don't see any reason that it needs to stay closed. I don't know what the ridership numbers are, but it's 100% up to the city of Lincoln. We haven't had any pushback from anybody at Amtrak or anything of that nature, so I was told it's completely up to us. I would ask that if you decide to open it, if you give me I want to try maybe this week, but If not by early next week, I've got some maintenance to do there that is going to be easier to do without it being open, and I'll work as best I can to get it done quickly. Other than that, I don't know how you would address any kind of COVID situation, staying 6 foot apart, that thing. There's no one that mans that on a daily basis. So I think maybe informational sign up somewhere saying it's still an issue. Please be careful and considerate to other passengers and so that sort of stuff. But other than that, we could probably put something up there. I'd like to maybe it's open to Amtrak passengers, maybe only because a lot of the issues we have there are not Amtrak riders. They're just kids, vandals, whatever you want to call it. That's a lot of the people that are actually in there on a daily basis. So, but if you do decide to open, if you give me some heads up and give me a few days to get my work done up there.
Alderman Parrott.
Yes, I think it's tourism's hope to open up by the 1st of July. And so I think we have time for you to get your work done.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not a problem at all.
Alderman Honey.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, would you have a set date? I mean, if you, or just July too far out? I mean, could we open it sooner? That'd be a question.
Are you asking me?
And anybody, I guess, could answer. I know.
Well, I think some of the other things we've been talking about, is it the 26th of this month that is the possibility of the phase 4 transition? I mean, rather than go to July, we could use that as a date, or I just pick a date. And don't wait on me by any means. I can get the stuff I need done, no problem, certainly by then.
Yep. Alderman Parrott.
One other caveat for tourism opening up is if the contract for cleaning for the actual tourism facility, if they can start back up again. And so we're working with 2 issues, one with the city and then one with the contract that tourism has with their cleaning company to allow their individuals, Sam, they use the special needs folks to clean. I forget what the Logan County Rehab.
Masonry, but it's called Memorial Behavioral Health.
So we don't know when they're going to open up or allow them to start cleaning again, and so it's kind of those 2 issues working together.
Alderman Bateman.
So I'd like to put on the voting session that we reopen the Amtrak wait station and shoot for a date of Monday the 22nd. I mean, we would vote on the 15th.
Do we need a vote on this? 'Cause
It sounds like it's going to pass, so I mean.
We didn't even vote for it to close. We could just give him the okay to open up when he has the work done in there
I'm
before
okay with
July
it.
1st.
Yep.
How about we open up at Wes's discretion once he gets his work done?
Yeah, but if it goes beyond July 1st, then we can have another conversation.
It won't. Like I said, give me, honestly, the one big issue I still need to actually figure out, but it doesn't change the functionality of the building by any means. So honestly, by early next week, mid next week, and I'll let you know as soon as I get it done. But either way, it's not going to hold up it actually physically being used. It's not a hazard or danger or anything of that nature.
Just have him open up when he gets his work done then.
Okay. Yep, just let us know, Wes.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving on to announcements. The first item I got on here, Beth, would you share with the council the information that went out about the TADA database and that business program, please?
Yes, good evening. We announced and launched the TADA platform. It's TADA platform. It's for any business that needs some assistance after the COVID-19 pandemic has maybe closed their business or slowed it down, something to that nature. And it's open for anyone. And the website to use is www.gpcovid.com. And it'll give you all kinds of things to do. But this is called the Business Recovery Program. and TDA is the platform. So the individual will get on there, and it will bring up all kinds of grants that they possibly. It's kind of like a one-stop shop. So it'll bring all kinds of grants up that will be available to them based on what they have input into the system. And then I'm here to help. So anybody has any questions, they can call me at 217-732-2122, and I'll be happy to help them.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Keller?
I had another announcement.
We do have one more. The next item that we have under announcements is the appointment of the acting mayor, and I'll turn it over to the city attorney, Mr. Hoblet.
As many are aware, there is a vacancy in regards to the office of mayor due to a resignation that occurred on Friday. Our code provides that we have a mayor pro tem, and that is established under 1-5-3. One of the stipulations states right there, says the mayor pro tem can operate in there when there's a vacancy in the office of mayor, or ceases to exist when that vacancy ceases to exist. But the subsection right thereafter is 1-5-4 vacancy. The 1-5-3 was established in the 1975 code. The 1-5-4 was established in 2015. And it states that whenever a vacancy shall occur in the office of mayor, the account of death, resignation, removal, the office of mayor shall be filled in accordance with the laws of the state of Illinois as amended from time to time. Now, the laws of the state of Illinois, therefore, I think the intent was that the mayor pro tem was to act in a limited and temporary capacity until an acting mayor or mayor could be appointed. With this, in this particular case, the statute that is relevant is 65 ILCS 5/3.1-50. I'm sorry, 3.1-10-50. And subsection F is the relevant section, which it seems to be the 28-month is the magic number in regards to how it is handled. If there is in excess of 28 months between the next municipal election, then there is a special election. That is not that's not the situation here. There is less than 28 months in regards to the next general election, or the next municipal election. And so therefore, we look to subsection 1, which states that the alderman or an alderwoman must appoint one amongst their own to act as the acting mayor until the next municipal election. Now, the acting mayor is not mayor, in essence. It's an amalgamation between the two offices, because if a person who is one of the aldermen or women gets appointed to be the acting mayor, they are still an alderman or alderwoman, and they still have their powers as that respective office, but they have also a mayoral powers until the next municipal election. But that does not necessarily mean that they get an additional vote, in the event that there is a tie, or any veto powers that might be with the mayor. Now, once that alderman or alderwoman is appointed to that position, they need to make a designation. They either say they want to remain as an alderman but act as the mayor, or that they want to resign from their office as alderman, thereby creating a vacancy in regards to that particular office, which would need to be filled in. The reason why an alderman or alderwoman might want to do that is so they can take those powers of the tiebreaker vote and any veto power that might occur. Okay, and so that is a designation that must be made at the time of the appointment for the acting mayor. And like I said, but by itself, by being appointed, that does not create a vacancy in that alderman's or alderwoman's office. And I think there's been a situation in the past from which the city has dealt with this. And I believe that in that situation in the past, the person who was appointed opted not to essentially give up their seat as an alderman, and the city dealt with it there. I don't believe, but there's still the question of, in the event of a tie, how do we deal with it? And that seems to be the question that remains outstanding. But that is the process that needs to happen. Obviously, it is incumbent upon this body here to make that designation, not unlike what I indicated previously, with some ordinances that need to be changed. The quicker this can happen, the better, because the longer it goes, the more cause of confusion there could be amongst the populace. So putting a strong foot forward is definitely within the council's best interest. But by no means am I indicating that this needs to be rushed. When there was an alderman that needed to be appointed sometime in the past, you recall the mayor had some time to find that alderman, and furthermore, the council had 60 days, I believe, to approve that appointment from the mayor after it was made. So I would say those similar provisions are in place here. It's not necessarily spelled out the same way, but I would think that given the fact that we're dealing with the office of mayor, obviously I would just think for logistical purposes, for optics purposes, that's probably should be dealt with in a quicker manner.
So I think obviously I would speak up and express my desire to be appointed by the council to fulfill Mayor Goodman's the remainder of his term until the election then determines who the future mayor may be. I think I've served the council well over the last 5 years, and I have served as mayor pro tem. I'm pretty up to speed with everything that was going on with the city at the previous mayor's departure, and I think it goes without saying that I've already expressed my interest in that particular office in other avenues and venues. So I would just ask for your consideration. Alderman Keller.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Well, then I would propose that we put on the voting agenda for next week the name of Tracy Welch, Alderman, who is Mayor Pro Tem, to be appointed to be the acting mayor for the city of Lincoln.
Yes. Concur.
Okay. We'll put that on the regular agenda then. Thank you.
Are we gonna move that to the number one?
Probably, yes.
Number one, okay.
Okay. Anything else, Mr. Hoblet?
No, that is all.
Okay. Are there any other announcements this evening? Alderman Keller.
Thank you. I was just going to announce, of course, Todd Volker, who is agenda item number 5, our partnership specialist for the Census Bureau, was supposed to be here tonight, but he knew that this was the first council as a whole agenda we've had since we have had the COVID outbreak. He knew there was a lot on the agenda, so he decided to abstain from coming. But he just wanted to reach out to us to say that he's still working with the city of Lincoln and the county of Logan to get the numbers up. So if there's an event or if there is an opportunity for us to promote the census, let me know. And I have materials that I can give to you, both online and in print materials. And with that said, our national response rate is now 60%, and Lincoln is at 66%, so we're still way ahead of the national average.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Alderman Hoineke.
I'll just make a motion to go in executive session under 2C1 personnel.
Second.
Alderman Hoineke made the motion. Alderman Keller second the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All against? All nay? Okay. We will go into executive session at 8:45 p.m. There will be no other business after executive session.